What episode are we up to? Bye, Producer John. Producer John has walked out on us.
Okay. Oh, right, okay.
Because he's got work to do. These people with their work. So now we've got to watch a little screen. We got electronic producer. All producers are being replaced by electronics. It's a little bit disturbing staring at myself. Anyway, how are you, man?
Good, thanks, John. Yourself, mate?
Yeah, okay. It wasn't a good round.
Yeah, not for either of our teams, was it? But we'll get to them in a little while.
All I can say is at least the Bulldogs scored a try.
They did, but at least the Dragons have one win on the board, though. But,
we can compare who's more depressed. It's the competition now. At least you're winning something. We can start with the Broncos and Rabbitohs for round 2.
Yes.
Now, I rushed home and I watched this whole game, and I thought it was a really good game of... the Broncos had a really good game.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Reece Walsh especially.
Reece Walsh was sensational for the Broncos. That's now 4 of the last 5 that the Broncos have won against the Rabbitohs, so they're on a bit of a roll there. Broncos centre Katoni Staggs has scored 6 tries in 7 games against the Rabbitohs, so very impressive efforts from Staggs. Selwyn Cobbo was really good as well. We talk about Reece Walsh. Selwyn Cobbo had a really good game. Ran for 176 metres. Finished with a try assist, 2 line breaks, a line break assist, and 8 tackle breaks as well. So well done to Selwyn Cobbo. And, of course, we're going to get to him a bit later, but Latrell Mitchell did score his 100th NRL try. But we've got a lot more to talk about with regards to Latrell in our news section later on.
So the social media blower-uppers section is also five comments about Latrell.
Yes. Yes. Plenty of Latrell items to discuss.
One thing about Latrell is he did only have one error, but while watching the game, I thought he could have injected himself in the... game a hell of a lot more, actually.
Yeah, he could have. Yeah, he scored that very late try, which was a solo effort, but the game was done by that stage. It was a meaningless try. He's got to impose himself on the game when the result's on the line, not in the last minute when they're, when the game's done and dusted and they're out of the game. So
he was actually one of the best Rabbitohs players on the field.
He was, yeah.
But there was a lot of instances during the game where I was watching it and just going, "Where's Latrell?" And then the camera would go on a long angle. It'd be on the opposite side of the field of the ball, especially when they were attacking the line and stuff like that. I just feel like he. Yeah, like you said, when the game was on the line, he didn't really step up and do something, and then he waited till the last minute to do something amazing, and it was amazing. But all the way through the game, there were so many other options for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it does. This is going to. We are going to talk about it in more detail later on, but this is really going to increase the pressure on Coach Jason Demetriou, this result. Yeah. But well done to the Broncos. They needed to get back to winning ways after they dropped that Vegas game against the Roosters. So the Broncos back in the winner's circle, that they needed a win, and they got one on Thursday. Rabbitohs
have the worst, it's only round 2, but the worst defence in the league, and the only reason they're not on the bottom of the ladder is because they score more points. They're not looking good, honestly. They're not looking good at all.
They're not, and again, we are going to talk about it later, but they're... The roster they've got Latrell at fullback, Cody Walker at 5'8", Damien Cook at hooker, and Cameron Murray at lock.
Alex Johnson is a gun finisher.
This is a side that's littered with talent. There's really no excuse for these poor results, and we've talked about it before, but last year, that fade out of only winning 4 of their last 13 games after leading the competition after 11 rounds and then dropping out of the 8. And then they've started this year losing 2 games straight. So they're now 4 wins from their last 15 games with that roster. If this losing run continues, well, Demetriou could be gone by the halfway point of the season, I think. It's really red alert time for him. And they need to start winning games, otherwise he's going to be looking for another job.
They've got a big game next week against the Roosters as well, which we'll get to the Roosters. But it's not looking good. They could very easily go 3-0 to start the season. So it's all about the Rabbitohs. Actually, this is a review of the Broncos and Rabbitohs game, but it's all about the Rabbitohs. Actually, I feel like now in the league, it's just everything in the news, everything about rugby league is about the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, and our news section is be very Rabbitohs dominated as well when we get to it a bit later on.
We can move on to the Sharks and the Bulldogs, which, again, I watched. I wish I hadn't because that was awful. I can't even begin to put into words how terrible the Bulldogs look. There is no description for how bad they look. They're all talking about discipline and best off season ever and blah blah blah. They conceded more errors, same amount of penalties, ruck infringements, inside 10 metres in the Sharks. They didn't look like they could attack. They just don't look like a good football team.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people say stuff like, it was 6-6 at halftime. They were in the game for a large portion of the game. A lot of people have been very positive about that 25-6 loss to Cronulla. But the fact of the matter is that we're only 2 games into the new season, and as Bulldogs fans, we already know that they're going to be a bottom 4 team. Yeah, we know that straight away. We know they're out of top 8 contention.
If only there was a numerical value you could assign to determine how different the teams were, like a score or something like that. If they had a score that you could actually effectively look at and say at the end of the game, just as an estimate, the Sharks were 25 points better than the Bulldogs 6.
The game doesn't go for 50 or 60 minutes. It goes for 80, and they lost 25-6.
There was a few years ago where I was saying all the time, if the field was 95 metres long, the Dragons would have won every single game of the season. That was my constant saying to mock them. The Bulldogs were in the game. If the a rugby league game was only 40 minutes, well, the Bulldogs would have 1 point. But it's not.
And this is the thing. I mean, this is Phil Gould's now been there for 3 years. This is now the roster that he's put together. He's cleared out the roster that was there when he first arrived, and this is completely a new roster that's been assembled by him. And the other point to note is under this, I think it's under the Players Association, CBA, you have to have, there's what I think we might have talked about it before, but there's this salary cap ceiling where you have to spend, you have to spend 95% of your salary cap. I don't like that. I think teams should be allowed to underspend in order to go all out and just buy a whole bunch of big name players at once to try and get back up the ladder more quickly. I don't like this 95% you have to spend. Yeah, but it is what it is. These are the rules they're working under. And so that's the thing. The Bulldogs have obviously spent at least 95% of their salary cap on this roster. And it's the roster Phil Gould's put together. So now we're looking at it and going, well, how are things going to change? Things are not going to change quickly, even from this point, even for this many years outside the 8. It's been 7 years in a row. This will be number 8. Make no mistake about it. We can already confirm that after 2 games.
Kicker was the only Bulldogs forward that made over 100 metres. And all of the rest of them, Max King made 87, but all of the rest of them were just getting dominated. And that's what's going to happen if you have young and experienced forwards. It can go either way, and it's gone the way you don't want it to go. So the halves, which aren't, the best halves pairing in the competition, aren't able to get time to pass out the back. Obviously, Adokar was missing, but he wasn't going to change this score.
No, he wouldn't have made up the difference. It would be no surprise to you that the Bulldogs still haven't won at Shark Park since 2011. Will Kennedy was really good for the Sharks. The fullback had 4 tackle breaks to go with 171 run metres. Nico Hines is really good as well, 116 run metres, a line break, 4 tackle breaks and 23 tackles. You mentioned Kickout had a really good game for the Bulldogs.
Scored a try that was disallowed.
Was probably their best player, I would have thought, in a well-beaten team. Ronaldo Mulatalo now has 28 tries in 26 games at Shark Park. He ran for 206 metres and had 7 tackle breaks as well.
Yep. It was a terrible, terrible game of football, to be honest. On the other hand, the Panthers-Eels game on the same night, that was a cracker. It was a very close game, back and forth affair. Eels scored first in just the second minute. I was like just shocked, and I thought, "Oh, what happened to the Penrith defence?" It did end up being 5 tries to 3, but it was back and forth. So yeah, Eels scored first, second minute, then Panthers at the 10th minute and the 15th minute. Then the Eels brought themselves back into the game on the 21st minute. Then the Panthers scored again to go ahead. Then the Eels scored again, and I was getting really excited. But then the Panthers ran away with it in the second half.
Yeah, it was a rematch of that 2022 grand final as well. Well done to the Panthers. They probably needed a win after that shutout by the Storm in round 1.
Yep.
Centre Isaac Tago ran for 273 metres. A great game from Isaac
He was
Tago.
so good.
Had 9 tackle breaks. Superb game from him. Winger Sunia Taruva has now scored doubles in his last 3 games at Penrith Stadium. So that's very impressive. Junior Paulo led the way up front for the Eels, 155 metres from 15 runs, and that was just in 53 minutes of game time as well. Didn't play the full game. The Panthers, no surprise, have won 11 of their last 12 at home. Now, Dylan Edwards continues his great run of form, 226 metres for the Panthers. Clint Gutherson for his opposite number ran for 141 metres as well. And the Panthers had 9 line breaks to Parramatta's 3.
I mean, you can't take anything away from the Eels. They were so good. It was just the Panthers were the Panthers. It was a great game of football.
They're always going to be tough to beat Penrith at home.
And that's the bogey team, Panthers bogey team as well. And they managed to overcome that boginess. And
Parramatta's got as good a record as any team against Penrith in recent time.
But I really enjoyed the game. I was really like edge of the seat kind of stuff. The Panthers, yes, they didn't score in the second half. The Eels didn't score in the second half, but they looked really dangerous. And I think Eels fans have got a lot to look forward to for the year. They are now 1 from 2. But you can't take away from the fact that they're 1 for 2. There's only five undefeated teams in the second round. But yeah, 1 from 2 against. They had a good match last week, and then came up against a Panthers side that doesn't often lose 2 in a row. When was the last time that happened? So great game of football. Mm-hmm. Then Saturday we had Raiders versus West Tigers, which was not a great game of football. Mm-hmm.
Nope.
The Benji Marshall era officially began with a massive loss, and it was a massive one.
Yeah, no real surprise. Let's be honest. All the indications were that they were going to struggle before a ball was kicked, and of course it didn't. It doesn't help. These reports have come out that he's not working many hours of the day, so that's. I would have thought that's a real issue for a struggling club. I would have thought you'd need all hands on deck. You'd need to be working. Well, if you're the head coach, you're basically working all of your waking hours. That's the nature of the job. If you don't want to do that, well, then don't take the job. I mean, I don't understand why you would take the job if you didn't want to work 24/7. It's a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
Sorry. And you might think I've gone off early, but they're in the same boat as the Bulldogs. You know for a fact, and I'm sorry to say this because the Tigers are my second team, but we know for a fact that the Bulldogs and the Tigers are going nowhere this season, and they're both going to be bottom 4 clubs. We know that after just 1 game for the Tigers, 2 games for the Bulldogs.
Like when you're sitting there as a fan, all Bulldogs and West Tigers fans are sitting there going, man, I hope we go on a Dally M medal winning Kalen Ponga 2023 run. You're not expecting.
Well, there's no Kalen Ponga in either team, so it's not going to happen.
So there's no chance you're going to go through this 10-game winning streak late in the year to save either coaches' jobs or whatever. They're both like with the West Tigers. Look, Api Coruscant looked awesome. He played really well. He could get his State of Origin jumper back with that kind of form, but. When it's in one of these bad teams, I don't. It's really hard to judge whether he just looks better. So like he's going so much better than all the other players around him, and all he's really doing is going average. You know, he looked really good compared to the rest of the West Tigers. He ran hard, he tackled hard, scored a try. Every time he touched the ball, he looked dangerous. But also, it was against the Raiders, who, look, they didn't look special. They just looked like they were picking on a crappy team, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what the Raiders, I thought what they did really well was that their completions were really good. They had 24 of 25 completions in the first 57 minutes and finished the game with a 92% completion rate. You get through that many sets of six, you most of the time you're going to get enough opportunities to win the game, especially against terrible opposition. We also had, that first half try to Jordan Rapiner means he's now scored 16 in 14 games against the West Tigers, which I guess is no great surprise, is it? The Raiders have now won their last 8 games against the Tigers too, and Ricky Stewart's becomes only the 7th coach to notch 250 first-grade victories as well.
I know it took him 20 years.
That's the thing. If you coach for enough seasons, eventually you are going to win 250 games.
Even with the West Tigers, if you coach them for 30 years, you'd probably...
you coach long enough, you'll get to 250
We should
eventually.
really look at that win rate. But yeah, it was a terrible game of football, actually. There is now a clear distinction between the bottom 2 teams and the other teams. It is round 2, but it's going to be a long season. We can move on to the Cowboys and the Knights, which I didn't watch. I didn't watch this one. I skipped this one. It ended up being a golden point
finish. Chad Townsend field goal in Golden Point saw the Cowboys produce a dramatic come-from-behind 21-20 win over the Knights in Townsville.
Yeah, I checked the score and I thought the Knights had it, so ignored it.
Yeah, they were down 12-0 at the end of the first half, the Cowboys, and they made 10 errors and had just 38% of the ball. So it really turned around for them later in the game, and they've managed to come back and win it. Reuben Cotter led the way for the Cowboys in defence, 57 tackles and only 1 missed tackle. The Knights continue to struggle in Townsville. They haven't won there since 2015. And Kyle Felt, with that try in that game, is now equal with Matt Bowen as the club's all-time leading try scorer as well.
I remember Matty Bowen.
Yes, a great player.
The Knights are 0-2 to start the year, no different to last year. Again, they're staying off the bottom of the ladder by scoring a lot of points, basically. They have also conceded less points than the Bulldogs and the Rabbitohs, but they scored 32 points, and they've got the Storm this week. You don't expect there to be much improvement. Look, with regards to the Bulldogs, they got the Titans this week, who aren't exactly going to set the world on fire. So you would have hoped that perhaps maybe they could get off the bottom of the ladder with a win this week. Yeah, but the Knights with the Storm. But the thing
is, like even if the Bulldogs beat the Titans, you go, well, so what?
Exactly.
You know that they're probably at best only going to win about maybe 6 or 7 games for the season. So it's all about the big picture, isn't it?
You got to hope they
win here or there doesn't change.
You got to hope they beat the Titans and the Tigers. Basically, maybe they'll beat the Rabbitohs. Well, they need to score points. The other game on Saturday, though, this was game of the round.
Yes, I covered this one actually.
Storm was victorious 30-26 over the Warriors, continuing that ridiculously long stretch of beating them. And that Xavier Coates try was, he leapt from like 6 or 7 meters out, okay, and the ball touched the ground a microsecond before his arm.
Yeah, it was touch and go, wasn't it? But yeah, a sensational try. Well done to Melbourne for pulling off the win. They were down 26-18 with 3 minutes to go. Pappenhausen scored the second of his 2 tries. And then obviously Xavier Coates with that winner in the corner. Just spectacular from Coates. And you sort of think about those great tries to decide games. You know, that Darren Albert try in the 97 grand final comes to mind. That Kyle Felt try in the 2015 grand final to level the game up and send it to Golden Point with, of course, the Cowboys going on to win that one. Those sorts of tries come back to mind when you see a try like that from Xavier Coates. The only thing I would say is I think maybe the try was made to be better by the match situation at the time. I think if the try had have happened, if it was 0-0 and the try had happened, we maybe wouldn't be talking about it in as glowing terms. But, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. Of course, the match situation is going to come into your mind when you're talking about a try like that.
One of the conversations I heard on the radio was, do you think that's the greatest try of all time? And the response was, you have to look at context. If that it was great because it was in the last minute, and if it had have been in the grand final to win the game, it would have been the greatest try of all time. But unfortunately, it was just in round 2 of a regular season game, and it was amazing. But it's just round 2. So it was just phenomenal. It's gone viral in America and stuff like that, and then of course Americans are coming out saying, you got to watch more NFL, because actually in the NFL they do a lot of those leaps. But I think people need to understand in America that in the NFL, all you have to do is get over the line. So it looks cool. Like if rugby league players just had to get over the line, they'd be doing that week in, week out. But he had to put the ball down while getting attacked without his hand that was outside the field of play before the ball had to touch the ground before his hand did. So
yeah, I think it got some traction in America as well. This try was played on some of those American sports shows. Would have been. I know I'm getting a bit greedy, but it would have been great if if the Storm had have happened to be playing in Vegas and he had have scored it in Vegas. But anyway, a great try from Xavier Coates. He's now scored 9 tries in his last 5 games against the Warriors. And this record the Storm have against the Warriors, they've won their last 15 against them. It's just staggering. The Warriors haven't won at Amy Park since 2014. Great win for the Storm. Great comeback, and they never say die, do they? It's unbelievable.
It was definitely the game of the round. But Sunday there was the Sea Eagles Roosters, which I also thought was a pretty good game. I think the Roosters actually, so it was 3 tries apiece, and the kicking came down to it, and that field goal in the 71st minute from DCE. The Roosters were just so stupid at points. Like, there was no other word you'd think to describe it. I was chatting to friends at the time on WhatsApp, and it was just like, well, that was stupid. Like, Sam Walker gave away a penalty that was like really stupid. They were, when you talk about discipline, it wasn't, their poor discipline didn't come from drop balls and accidental penalties and slowing down the play of the ball. They were just stupid kind of things that you just go like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and they were complaining about the referee as well. I think that they weren't happy. There was controversy over Manly's first try. They thought, James Tedesco was impeded in jumping for the ball, and I think the Roosters thought that, that Cherry Evans field goal, they thought that some of the Roosters chases were blocked as well, and so the Roosters were upset with the referee. But I don't know, bagging the referee, I mean, it's the oldest line in the book, isn't it?
20 errors, 9 penalties. What about don't do that?
We never hear about that, do we?
Why don't you not do that?
They bag the referee, but they ignore all that.
There was, they went on about the field goal checking for the downtown rule and all that stuff. So there's been one so far. I forgot to keep account, but there's been one disallowed field goal. But in the Panthers game, actually, one of the tries, if you watch it back, I kind of think it wasn't legit, because with the downtown rule, it's it was off a kick, and I think Nathan Cleary put the kick over. One of the Panthers players was completely offside, and then the Panthers scored. He didn't impede, but he was completely offside, and he was like a metre away from where the ball was caught and scored. And so I was like, that's a bit line ball with that downtown rule. And you kind of felt like because they were going to crack down on the blockers on field goals, and in Daly Cherry Evans' field goal thing, they were kind of... That was exactly what they said they were going to crack down on. But it's irrelevant because they won by 7 points, okay? And the field goal was kicked in the 71st minute, and the Roosters didn't look like scoring in that last 9 minutes. And you can say all you want, because they were deflated by the fact that they had to score 2 tries. That didn't worry Melbourne. Melbourne were down by 2 tries with 3 minutes to go. So
I mean, the Roosters have got to have a bit of a look at themselves, I would have thought. I mean, we had this Spencer Leniu incident in the first game, and then this second game they're just blaming the referee essentially for the loss. I think they've got to have a bit of a look at themselves here and wise up a bit.
20 errors. 20 is ridiculous. 9 penalties to the 4. It's ridiculous. They're giving away too many penalties. They're dropping the ball too much, and they're giving the opposing team... And they only lost by 7 points. If they cleaned up those errors, you would think that they wouldn't have lost, actually. Dom Young was awesome. It was good to finally see him score a try. Yeah. I mean, 2 rounds in, we missed out on him in the first round.
He scored that runaway try.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just would have thought, just little things to just very reactionary at the moment. I mean, even this stuff about Leniu, we're going to undergo an education program. Oh, well, maybe you could have done that before the season and you would have avoided the Leniu incident. And now that they get beaten by Manly and they essentially blame it on the officials, maybe it's time they had a bit of a look at in their own backyard and get their own house in order before they start trying to blame external parties here.
Yeah.
They need to sharpen up here, and they need to get their head in the game, and they need to improve in a number of areas.
On the other side, it was good to see. Actually, Manly, the ground was sold out. I don't know if it's sold out, but it was packed. There's a lot of people at Four Pines Park, Brookvale Oval.
Lottoland.
Yeah.
There's about 1 million names for that ground. They have a new one every year.
So it was fully packed, and it was really good. I guess the Manly faithful see a lot in Manly. And Luke Brooks is... I like the thing, one of the messages I got from one of my chat groups was clearly the Tigers were holding Luke Brooks back. Clearly. Because he's... That's 2 games in a row where Luke Brooks has been almost the best on field by being allowed to not worry about organisation, by being able to play off the back of one of the best halfbacks in the comp.
Yeah, he's very much helped by the players around him, having DCE at halfback next to him, having Tom Trbojevic at fullback. It's just helping him so much. As you said, it's really taking the pressure off him and Manly are seeing the benefits of that. We should also mention in this game that Luke Keary had another head knock as well.
He'll be out this week as well.
Yeah, so he's going to miss this week. He'll be back the following week. So, of course, we hope that he's okay. It's another setback for him. Yeah, we just hope that this doesn't continue to happen to him.
Yeah, but it was... Roosters aren't looking good, but they're still 8th.
Yeah, look, it is early days, but there's just a couple of little things where I've sort of gone, well, look, hang on a second. Look in your own backyard. Yeah. And I think I know that Trent Robinson's won 3 premierships, and I'm not for a moment suggesting that he's under pressure, but they have had a period now where they've underachieved, and now they've started the season with a couple of significant setbacks, I would have thought. So, I think that some of them need to have a bit of a look at themselves and right the ship here.
It's going to be quite an interesting match this week when they play the Rabbitohs. So it's the 2 whiny teams.
Very well. I'll tell you what, we're all going to be watching it. Yeah. You talk about before each round. You look at which games you're going to watch and which ones you're not. That's that's probably the first game that you're going to watch this weekend.
Etched into the calendar in big black texture, big circles and arrows. And then we can finish up the round with the Dolphins and Dragons, and that's it. On to the Rugby League news.
You want to just bypass? Yeah.
Oh, it was so sad. It was, look, I turned off 20 minutes to go. Okay, and it was 24-0 or something like that. And the Dragons didn't look bad. This is the thing. They still look like they were trying. and they still looked like they were happy to be there, which is good. And they still looked like they had commitment. Just nothing came off for them. Nothing. So
in your opinion, obviously they had that good win over the Titans in round one, and it was just the opposite against the Dolphins. They've just been obliterated by the Dolphins. So in your view, what changed from round one to round two? What were they doing in round one that was so successful, and what went wrong in round two? What went so wrong for them in the space of a week?
I think you got to look at the opposition, because the Dolphins obviously had a shocker in round one, and they shook up their whole team. And it could be that the Dragons thought the Dolphins were going to come out because they shook up their whole team. Were going to come out and be the same as round one, if not worse. But they weren't. The Dragons weren't like pushing passes or like trying to pull off the miracle play or anything. They were going through their structures, and it just wasn't coming off. And I think it came down to the Dolphins were just too good. And so now, based on 2 rounds, my expectation for the year is going to be the Dragons results are going to depend a lot more on the opposite team than themselves. If they continue to play like they are and keep going through their structures and stuff like that, they'll win some games. But it will depend a lot on the other team, like, being off their game. I think, because I really, honestly, I found no difference between last week and this week when I was looking at the Dragons team. Attitude in defence, attitude in attack, attitude in, they do them together. They weren't frustrated with the way they were losing, which, that can be either good or bad, but I think with the Dragons' case, it's good because they didn't look deflated. It looked like, they thought they could still win even when there was 20 minutes to go and they were not able to score.
Did your view on, and I know it's only one game, we will point that out, we're only 2 rounds in here, but did your view on where they're going to finish this year, did that change? Did that change at all as a result of that game? Did you think they were going to finish in a certain position before the game, and now you've changed your view based on that one game?
No,
or it stays the same?
I think they'll still get 6th. They wouldn't spin 17th.
So you thought that before that?
Yeah,
game?
yeah. Just because they won one, doesn't mean anything. I thought if they actually won this one, then I would have thought, all right, maybe they won't get the spoon. But yeah, Tyrell Sloan played really well, ran for 141 metres. Zach Lomax ran for 285. Kyle Flanagan had a couple of errors in him, but he played really well. Ben Hunt was good. Ben Hunt had a couple of drop balls that were shockers, but it's just, I just think the Dragons this year are going to depend entirely on how the other team plays. And that's kind of bad, right? Because, halfway through that game, you would think, they're going through their structures and this is what our game plan is and everything like that. And that's what we're going to do week in, week out. And it's not working and we're scoring 0 points. Maybe we should change. There was no plan B. But it's still, to me, based on the Dragons historically over the past few years, I see, finally I can see the Dragons have some kind of consistency that Flanagan's brought in. And I don't expect anything. Like I've said many, many times on this podcast, I expect nothing for the next few years except growth and that kind of consistency and structure. So it's okay with me.
So maybe, and we're often guilty of this after round one because, again, we can only talk about games that have happened. That's all we can do. So after round one, if certain players, perform above your expectations, well, you're going to sort of fall in that trap of praising them maybe a bit overly. And maybe we did that with Kyle Flanagan a little bit. He had that good game against the Titans. Maybe we were, I was, maybe we were too quick to sort of say, oh, yeah, look, Kyle Flanagan looks the goods when, the reality was that, the Bulldogs, the Roosters let him go for a reason, then the Bulldogs let him go for a reason. He just didn't perform consistently over a number of seasons, and to maybe jump on one game and say, oh, look, Kyle Flanagan's back, maybe I was a bit hasty to do that.
Well, I think actually he still retained the same level of football. I actually thought out of the two halves, Ben Hunt played worse than last week. Ben Hunt was the deciding factor. But like they threatened the line. They had disallowed tries. They had line breaks. They had everything right.
That's the thing. That they might have. They might have played okay here and there, but they still lost 38.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the issue.
It was like everything you did they did last week. They did exactly the same this week, and this week the Dolphins went nah. And that's what I mean when I say like it's going to depend on the other team. But for a Dragons fan, at least there is consistency, and at least they all didn't look like individually brilliant. I've been saying it for years. The Dragons, like, there's no team. There's been no team there. Each player has played really, really, really well, individually. But as soon as you have two in a tackle or someone has to pass the ball, that's where the Dragons would fall down. And I was watching a TikTok clip of Remember the Titans, the Denzel Washington movie, where the white team captain says to the black team captain, like, why aren't you blocking? Why aren't you trying? And so on and so forth. Why do you let them, like, basically tackle the white guys? And the black team captain says, like, look at your own team. You're the team captain. Look at your own team. You're going through the same thing. I'm here for me and me only. And that's what the Dragons have been like for the past many years. But this year they don't look like that. This year they look like, the Titans after they've gone on their Gettysburg. Except they lose still. But they look like a team now. Okay, so that's my happy point, and so I'll continue to wear my Dragons jerseys this year, and we'll hope for the best. But I don't expect much. I still expect the wooden spoon for them. Because if the Dolphins looked at the video and went, "That's what they're going to do," and shut them out 38-0, every other team can do that. Okay. Like, really, come on. It's not going to take
It is a bit of a bad sign if you're talking about, well, they actually played all right. Well, they lost. You'd rather them not play well at all, because then at least you could go, well, we can fix it up.
Yeah.
But if you're saying that they played okay and they lost 38-0.
That's what I mean. They had no plan B.
That's a concern.
They had their structure. They stuck to their structure. Their structure worked in that they stuck to it. But then when it wasn't working at all to get over the line, to win and get on top, they just kept doing it. Consistency is good, but, consistency is good because it shows me positive things for the future for the Dragons, not for this year.
They've got to persist with... Of course, they've got to persist with Shane Flanagan for a number of years here. This is going to take a fair bit of time. They've just got to stick with him and hope that over a longer period of time things turn around.
Yeah, I'm on the 5-year plan with Shane Flano, mate. I'm driving a bus.
He's got form on the board. He took Cronulla from being a bottom side to a premiership. So he can do it. It's very difficult to take a team from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
When he was at the Sharks, when he first started, I remember they would have watch parties for the last round to watch the team they were competing with the wooden spoon for. Like, what kind of team atmosphere is that? We all got together at the pub to watch, like, the Roosters or whatever play whoever in the last round, because if they lost, then they'd get the wooden spoon and we wouldn't.
I don't think you should be having a pub gathering for that.
Yeah, but that was what the Sharks were like, and then Flano came in and fixed all that crap, and that's what I hope for the Dragons. So that's the round previews. Reviews. We'll do the previews on Thursday. There's a lot to talk about in the news as usual, and we'll start with, honestly, guys, it's just our opinion. Post the Rabbitohs game, everyone has definitely seen the news. Latrell Mitchell was interviewed by Triple M, and they had to dump the whole interview. He dropped the F-bomb multiple times. He said shit. He basically said he didn't care and he knew what he was doing was not allowed, but, whatever. He scored his 100th try. Now, his team had just lost, and he seemed really happy to have scored his 100th try. It's really easy to find on the internet. Anybody who hasn't watched it, just go look for Latrell Mitchell being an idiot. Yeah, I think it was stupid. And like a lot of ex-players and stuff are coming out and defending him and saying, it's post-game, he's emotional, and so you don't know what you're saying. But to me, that's completely lacking in reality. It's like they're not in reality if they think that, because there was 7 other games with 50 other interviews across the board, and not a single other one was dropped completely. Only Latrell Mitchell's.
Yeah, look, we all swear in day-to-day life. Let's face it. I'm not going to pretend that we don't. Everybody swears at some point or another. That's just life. But to do it in such a public arena, after a game, you're in a radio interview. You know that radio interview is going out to hundreds of thousands of people. To do it at that point, you know the microphone's on. You just do it willingly 5 times. I think he dropped the F-bomb. Mm-hmm. And then not only that, he said that he didn't care. So it's one thing to swear that amount of times in the heat of the moment, maybe forgetting, what your forum is. But to then say that you just don't care and you just do it anyway. Geez, the arrogance on him is staggering to think that he... And you know what contributes to it? The NRL, that they've got a lot to answer for here. They continue to do nothing about his transgressions. He spoke about, he talked a lot about what penalty Spencer Leniu should have gotten over that racism remark that was made, banned for 8 weeks, Leniu. Latrell Mitchell, like all the other players, was not supposed to make comment on how long that penalty should have been. He did make comment. The NRL took no action. The NRL, again, are taking no action here. Andrew Abdo's going to go and meet with him or something. They're going to have some meeting have a meeting. Well, what is this? If you're running the game, you take action when someone behaves like this. You don't go over there and have a meeting. So the NRL, Volandis and Andrew Abdo continue to show extremely weak leadership in this area, and Latrell Mitchell exploits it. He gets away with it. So what you go, well, why wouldn't he keep doing it if the head honchos of the game take no action on it?
If you remember in 2009, Darius Boyd gave an interview in which he didn't answer any questions. Right?
And all he did was not answer questions. He wasn't dropping F-bombs.
He got Broncos and Darius Boyd got sanctioned for it. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm trying to find it out, but it's 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
He was a superstar of the game at the time. But he got in trouble for it. When players have expletive-loaded rants outside of the game, not on a media interview, and someone films it on their mobile phone, it gets posted all around social media. They get sanctioned for it. They get fined. When Latrell Mitchell goes on a radio and swears so much that they have to drop the whole entire interview, and again, all these people saying you don't know what it's like to be in the heat of the moment. There was 7 other games on the weekend. 7, okay? There was players interviewed. It's not just Triple M. You can't even go, there were 7 other games, and Triple M interviewed 1 player from each game. So 15 other interviews, because there was Channel 9 interviews, 2SM interviews, ABC Radio interviews, KO Sports interviews, Fox Sports 1 interviews, like so many interviews. If you are at a game after a match, you see like 10 players with headphones and a microphone on. There is so much media. There was one interview, even if we conservatively say, okay, so there's 8 games and 3 interviews per game. 1 out of 24. That's super conservative. It would be more like, 100 interviews. One. Also, there are game interviews before the game. There are interviews during the game at halftime now, which I don't really like. But during the game at halftime, where they're coming off the field and people are interviewing them, not a single one was dropped because of swearing in the heat of the moment, except for Latrell Mitchell's one. And if it had been someone else, they would have got in trouble, and we wouldn't actually be talking about it that much, because you could believe that it was like possibly a heat of the moment thing. But the fact that Latrell Mitchell did it, and he's in the news every week, and then said, I don't care, is absolutely ridiculous. He should be fined and suspended. He fully, fined and suspended.
Yeah, as you say, if it had been Victor Radley or Matt Lodge making these comments, would Andrew Abdo be going to have a meeting with them and having a chat, or would they be taking far more serious action? I think we all know the answer to that. Just another point I wanted to make. I saw a headline on an article from Andrew Webster today, which said, before Latrell was dropping F-bombs, he was helping police solve youth violence. I'm sorry, Andrew, that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. Him helping police solve youth violence has nothing to do with how he speaks to the media after a game of football. I'm sorry, Andrew. I know you think that Latrell Mitchell can do no wrong, because last year when he was behaving in a similar way, Andrew Webster said it wasn't his job to hold him accountable. And now, so according to Andrew Webster, Latrell Mitchell can do no wrong. Latrell Mitchell can just do whatever he wants, and Andrew Webster won't hold him accountable. Brent Reid on NRL 360 tried to defend Latrell, saying, that there could be some concerns over his mental health. Come on. He's dropped 5 F-bombs in a post-game interview, and you're pulling out the mental health card on that? Like, seriously, there are plenty of people who have in society who have mental health problems who don't behave like that in public view. Yeah. So don't pull the mental health card. A lot of people have those issues in life. Don't pull that card on us now. Sorry. Michael Ennis was being very glowing in his praise of Latrell in commentary, and some people on social media rightly called him out on it. It seems like people are just really scared to criticise Latrell for anything. They're scared to criticise him. And you're always hearing people say, I'm a great fan of Latrell. I'm a real fan. I'm a fan of him. You know what? I'm not doing that anymore, because I'm not a fan of Latrell anymore. I'm not a fan of a player who comes out and just drops 5 F-bombs on an interview after the game. I'm sorry. He's just not a likeable character in the game. He is not. So from now on, obviously, I'm going to continue talking about his performance, but I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to be trotting out those lines, we hope he does this, we hope he does this. No. I'm not a fan of his anymore. I'm not going to try and dress it all up and sugarcoat it and pretend to be anymore.
Yeah, it's beyond. I don't understand what he has on all of the power players in the game, that he can just do whatever he wants, and nobody ever does anything. If that was any other player, there's not a single... If that was James Tedesco, one of the statesmen of the game who's never been in any trouble, and he walked out and did that, he would have got in trouble. He would have got sanctioned. The Roosters would have got in trouble. But because it's Latrell Mitchell, it's just fine. And I think the really thing that people need to really pay attention to is, when you do something wrong, ignorance is no excuse. Often, ignorance is no excuse, okay? He knew what he did was wrong, and he said he didn't care. He intentionally did it and said he didn't care. And how do you not then go to him and say, you knew what you were doing was wrong? You intentionally breached the rules of the game and radio and said you didn't care. Yeah. And, we're just going to go have a meeting and sit down and find out, is there something wrong with you? It's beyond ridiculous now, the Latrell Mitchell thing. We're trying to book in a time for Mitchell Pearce to come on the podcast next week, and I'm hoping, or the week after, I'm hoping we might ask him his opinion on this kind of behaviour in the game, because I can't think of any other player in the history of the game that was allowed to just get away with things willy-nilly, no matter who they were. Darren Lockyer, who was one of the most well-respected people in the game at the time he played, tackled a bouncer outside of a nightclub and got sanctioned and in trouble for it. Jonathan Thurston, one of the most well-respected players in the game and personalities in the game, hit some police with a crutch or whatever the hell he did, got in trouble with it. Latrell Mitchell just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, and with Brent Reid on NRL 360, when they were talking about it, he said, I'm a huge fan of Latrell. And then Braithen Astor said, we're all fans of Latrell. That's irrelevant. And look, at least Braith and Astor took Brent Reid to task on it, which I thought was really good of an Astor. I agree with a lot of what he said on the issue. But why does everybody feel like, more so than any other player I've heard of in the game, when talking about Latrell, why does everybody have to qualify everything they say about him? Why does everybody have to say, oh, we're huge fans of his, we're a big fan, we're a big fan? No, you don't have to pretend to be a fan of his. I'm not a fan of his anymore. I'm not a fan of players who come out and drop a bunch of F-bombs on TV or on radio when there are kids watching it. I'm not a fan of players who do that. I'm not gonna pretend to be a fan of his anymore. Like everybody seems to have to pretend they are and qualify everything they say about it.
It's just bizarre. I don't understand. Like Greg Inglis, they always compare him to Greg Inglis, who was a great spokesman for the game as well. He had an issue where his girlfriend had bruised face and they had domestic violence things and stuff and ended up being plastic surgery that she'd had. But again, he got in trouble for it. Every single time, everyone gets in trouble for it except for Latrell Mitchell, who gets in trouble for nothing. Nothing.
And it's no wonder he keeps doing it because Andrew Abdo and Peter V'landys are too gutless to do anything about it. So it's no wonder this will just continue to happen because he knows he can get away with it. He knows they're too scared to sanction him.
Going on forever. Did he ever get sanctioned by the NRL for that whole thing with the guns where he was illegally playing with guns? Did he ever get sanctioned? I don't think so. I don't remember him ever get sanctioned. It's just becoming more and more evident because it's becoming more and more common. As they treat him with kid gloves and don't do anything to him, he just does more and more stuff. Like every week now. Like since last year it's been like all the time, but it's, we had Spencer Lanier and now this week we have F-bombs, and then what's going to happen next week? And if I was the club, the Rabbitohs club, I would be taking him to task because it was like, dude, you just got smashed. You're 2-0 to start the season. You've just gone on the radio acting all happy like you scored your 100th try, dropped a bunch of F-bombs, got your interview dumped, and said, I don't care.
And who does that? After their team gets well beaten in a game, 28-18 flatters them. It was more like he scored that try in the last minute. The game was done and dusted. That scoreline flattered them at the end. Who does that after their team gets beaten, comes out and says, oh, I'm so happy I scored my 100th try? No, nobody does that. You don't even mention you scored your 100th try, especially if your team gets beaten. You let others bring that up. You don't mention it yourself.
Yeah, you can harken back to when Andrew Johns became the highest point scorer in the game's history or whatever it was. I think he was against Parramatta, and they got smashed like 30-2 or something like that, and he kicked the penalty goal to go over and become the top point scorer or whatever it was, right? He wouldn't come out of his dressing room to collect the trophy. It was a trophy ball, the game ball in a trophy case. He wouldn't come out because that's the kind of behavior you would expect. Like, he wasn't happy with the fact that he's just got smashed. Even though he achieved something amazing in the game. 100 tries is a good achievement. It's a benchmark achievement. It's not a massive achievement. It doesn't even put him on the top 100 try scorers of all time, I believe. It's a massive achievement. But what he should be doing is going, crap, guys, we're 2-0 to start the season. We've won 4 games in our last 15 games since last year. We need to be looking at what we're going to do. And instead he's sitting there just doing another Latrell Mitchell thing, and nobody's doing anything about it. Seriously, for me, the club, I can't believe the club does. I can't believe the NRL doesn't do anything, but I really, really can't believe the club doesn't do anything. Why is the club not going to the coach and saying, you're 2-0, you're getting your ass kicked, Latrell's out there doing whatever he wants. Sam Burgess was right. Why isn't the club doing that?
Sam Burgess was right. We know that now. That's the other point to make, is that we're only 2 rounds into the season. We've already had him comment on a judiciary matter when he shouldn't have. And we've had him drop these F-bombs after a game. After 2 rounds. We're 2 rounds in. The season goes for 27 rounds. By round 27, what is his rap sheet going to look like by round 27 if it already looks like that after round 2?
Yeah, he's really beyond ridiculous. I cannot believe it. I just can't believe that this continues to go on, and it does continue to go on. it's beyond ridiculous. And yeah, like I said, I want to get some opinions from rugby league players. I see all of these ex-players on the internet like really justifying his behaviour for specifically this one, but since 2005, when the Tigers, it's the most famous one, like I think it was Bryce Gibbs or something. Walking around the field after the Tigers won the final, just dropping F-bombs and C-bombs and stuff. But that was fully emotionally charged, and the NRL realised at that stage, like, oh my God, we need to do something. And they put in place systems. Like, all the players have media training and stuff like that. They know they're not allowed to do this stuff. And he just did it. And you can say all you want about it was the heat of the moment. But he said, yeah, I know I'm doing wrong. I just don't care. I just don't care. He just doesn't care. And when somebody gets to that point where they just don't care about anything, they'll just keep doing whatever they want until you pull them into line. It's up to the club and it's up to the NRL to tell him, like, dude, pull your head in, concentrate on football. And we got, more about Rabbitohs and a lot of comments on him. So that's honestly, guys, it's just our opinion. I think we both agree Latrell Mitchell needs basically a smack upside of the head from the NRL and the Rabbitohs to pull him into line, and it's beyond ridiculous the special treatment he's getting.
Yeah, too many excuses are made for him, and we're all getting sick of it.
Yeah, exactly. On to more news. So it's been leaked. Teams aren't named yet. It's Tuesday today. Sorry, we are recording one day late because, we should have introduced the fact that Robbo wasn't able to make it today, but we're rescheduling to next week. But it's been leaked as of yesterday that the Rabbitohs have decided to drop their halfback. So when teams are named today, Lachlan Ilias will not be named at halfback for the Rabbitohs, and Dean Hawkins will take over.
Yeah, I think Lachlan Ilias has been made a scapegoat here.
Yeah, for sure.
He made, he wasn't great against the Broncos, but the game, the Vegas game against Manly, he made that great cover tackle on Jason Saab. That's one of the tackles of, the last 5 or 10 years. I would have thought that was a great tackle. I thought he was okay in that game, and after 2 games, for him to take the fall when they've got Latrell Mitchell, who's a New South Wales and Australian representative at fullback, Cody Walker's a New South Wales representative at 5'8", Damien Cook, New South Wales and Australian representative at hooker, Cameron Murray, New South Wales and Australian representative and captain at lock. They've got all those senior players there, and a young 23-year-old halfback around all those senior players takes the fall and is made the scapegoat. I don't like it, and if Jason Demetriou thinks that's gonna save their bacon here, I think he's got another thing coming. Lachlan Ilias is not the issue at the Rabbitohs. It's those senior players I mentioned who continue to underperform. They've got the roster there this side. That's the difference between them and some of the other strugglers, like the Bulldogs, the Tigers, the Dragons. They've got the excuse of not having the roster. The Rabbitohs do not have that excuse. They have a star-studded roster, which, as I've said a million times, somehow managed to miss the top 8 last year after leading the comp after 11 rounds. And they've now lost their first 2 of this season, so now they've only won 4 of their last 15. That's the other problem that Demetriou's got. Is how does he explain this to the power brokers at the club, like your Russell Crowes, etc.? How does he explain it? Because they were on top after 11 rounds last year, so they all know that the potential's there. It's not as if this team's never been up there and you're not sure what their real potential is. Well, we know what it is. They were on top of the ladder after 11 games last year, and now they've just fallen apart. So that's on him as the coach. And as I've said, the more they keep losing, it's not going to be falling on Lachlan Ilias. It's going to be falling on Jason Demetriou and those other senior players I've mentioned.
Well, if I was Lachlan Ilias, I'd kind of be happy to be dropped actually at this point because, then if it continues, you can say, you dropped me, it made no difference.
Yeah.
So bringing in Dean Hawkins, who's played 6 games since 2021 and he's 25 years old, do you really think that's going to change Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker, Cam Murray, Damien Cook, Alex Johnston, the list goes on. Tom Burgess. Do you think that's going to make them any better to get you over the line?
Well, it's not, and there's nothing against Dean Hawkins.
No, absolutely.
But we were just making the point that if Dean Hawkins was that good, well, he would have started the season, wouldn't he? He didn't start the season. So obviously they've just gone to him because they need someone to fill the hole there.
Yeah, so
but if they think he's going to solve all their problems, well, come on, seriously.
They're taking dropping a 23-year-old with 53 games experience and 3 international appearances for Greece for a 25-year-old who's played 6 games in his entire life.
Yeah, and it takes you, I think for a half, I think Matthew Johns has said in the past that it takes you, between 40 and 60 first-grade games as a half to really find your feet. And Ilias has got those games under his belt, and Hawkins does not.
And
so if they think that this is going to change anything, I think they've got another thing coming.
Ridiculous. Continuing on with the Rabbitohs, Josh Mansour, who played with them for 1 year?
I think it might have been 2 years, John, but we will check on that.
Yeah. He doesn't play anymore, right? He's retired.
He's retired, yep.
He played for the Rabbitohs for 21 and 22. So only 1 year with Jason Demetriou.
Yes.
Has launched an extraordinary attack on Jason Demetriou.
Yes, he has. So he was talking on James Graham's podcast, and he went into huge detail. I've just picked out one example here because, we'd be talking all day if we went through everything he said. But he said this, and I quote, he says, "I didn't see eye to eye with the coach, which was a shame. We just didn't have a good rapport. I feel like every time he spoke to me, he didn't live up to what he was saying, and I let it get to me. There were multiple conversations that just didn't go the way he was saying, and he was saying it was going to go. I'm a man of my word. I was holding him to every conversation we had. I was so frustrated that final year. It's pre-season, and he told me I was going to be on that right edge with Stretch Campbell-Graham. He wants me to build my combination with him, and he fully believed in me. Round 1 comes. He names the side on Tuesday. I was in the team, and then on Thursday's captain's run, I'm coming in, and I get a text from him saying to come to his office. I thought it was a bit bizarre. He told me that he was going to rest me for that week. I was like, rest me for that week? It's round 1. Why would you name me if you thought I needed a rest? Which is a fair comment to make. Mansour then goes on to say, and then he said, I just want you to get a couple of weeks under your belt. I'm like, okay, no worries, all good. So there were a whole bunch of other stories that he went into. That's just one example. Why would you name someone for round 1 and then backtrack on that and say that they needed a rest? And this is only one example of, poor communication from Demetriou. So this really, you put all this together, this is really not looking good for Jason Demetriou here at all.
So the thing with Josh Mansour, right? So I read this and I thought, I'll go on a deep dive into Josh Mansour's career at South Sydney. So it was he played 2 years, yeah. So he only played 16 games for South Sydney. He was in and out of the team in 2021, only playing 11 games, and it was in round 23 that he did his knee and was ruled out for the rest of the season. So he'd only played 11 games in the first 23 rounds. So he's in and out as it was the year before. Then in 2022, when Demetriou came on board, he only played 5 games for the whole season and was in and out as a replacement randomly. Now, you notice he doesn't have an issue with being dropped and in and out in 2021. But he played less games in 2022 and he's brought up this is the issue. And I think the issue isn't around I think you can take from that the issue, Josh Mansour's issue isn't around being in and out of the team. Seems like the kind of guy will do what's best for the team. If there's someone better than him, let him play. The issue is around Jason Demetriou saying to him, you'll be playing this week. And then on the Thursday saying, by the way, you're not playing. And you go on to that. He told many, many stories about the same thing happening throughout the season.
There were so many stories. We don't have time to go into all of them.
And then you look at the history of the last couple of years with the Rabbitohs. Obviously, Jason Demetriou talks a lot to Latrell Mitchell because he gets special treatment, according to Sam Burgess. And I believe Sam Burgess.
You have to.
Yeah, Mansour's run at the Rabbitohs was at the end of the career, and we all know wingers finish early because they lose speed in their legs and stuff like that. And I think you can tell he only played 11 games in his first year there, in and out of the squad as a fill-in, and he was happy with it, probably based on communication.
Well, Wayne Bennett's a much better communicator than Demetriou, by
and
the
it
sounds of it.
speaks volumes to exactly that. Jason, if there were betting markets on it, bet with your head not over it, I would put money on Demetriou being the first to go this year. There's always coaches sacked in the middle of the year. So it's a given. It's a rugby league, NRL given. At this point, I'd say, because when ex-players start coming out and bagging him, last year they went on that slide. This year they're not going well. Latrell Mitchell is running rampant. Latrell Mitchell has always been like a bit, out there in the news. But when Wayne Bennett was there, he was way more under control. And
Wayne Bennett can control those big personalities because he's a big personality himself. I think Demetriou's very long odds to be there next year at this point. I fully reckon middle of the round. Yeah, I think middle of the season. If they continue to struggle for the first half of the season, he'll be gone by halfway through the season, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to see if there's any markets on NRL coaches getting fired. No. So over the weekend, there were 2 instances of referees impeding players. In the Storm game, the first one was in the Panthers game, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, to be honest, I was only aware of the Jerome Hughes one, to be honest.
It might have been in the Bulldogs game. There was a try. There was a try disallowed over the weekend for referee interference. It was in the Bulldogs game with Kyrgios, I think. Right. Kyrgios' try in the first half, right? There it is. It was Kyrgios' try was disallowed because the referee got in the way. And then in the Storm game, this referee got away in the way. And post this, what we've got is Jerome Hughes has been charged, and the player in the Bulldogs game wasn't. It wasn't a Bulldog. It was who they were playing. Now, I referee not NRL. I referee Jiu-Jitsu, and I have been kicked by the competitors accidentally. I've been run into by the competitors accidentally, like a couple of times. 100% of the time I've been hit by the competitors, it's been my fault. It doesn't matter where I'm standing, how far away I am from them, whatever. Like, jiu-jitsu can be really slow, but it can also be really fast, especially when you got young 20-year-old blue belts wrestling. Okay, so no matter where I'm standing, if I get hit, it's my fault. I felt while watching that Storm game, because, look, the difference is actually they've clarified Jerome Hughes actually pushed him out of the way, but he's not looking at the ref. The ref is running backwards into him, and Jerome Hughes puts his hands up and pushes him out of the way. I felt at the time that it was nothing and nothing would come of it. And then imagine my surprise when yesterday there's a news article that Jerome Hughes has been charged for contrary contact with the ref.
It took the early guilty plea, and he's now got a 1-game suspension. Look, I'm with you on this. I watched that and I thought, look, the referee was far too close to the play. The referee's got to get out of the way. He's in the heat of the moment. He's got an attacker coming his way. He's right on the line. He's got to do something. He doesn't want the opposition to score. The referee was right in his way. And I get, players need to take care about where the referee is, but in that split second where they're about to score a try, he's right in front of him, the referee. What choice did he have?
Yeah, what was it? What else was he going to do?
What was he supposed to do?
He should have got, what we saw in the Bulldogs game was he should have laid there and not pushed the referee over and got instructed, and then the try would have been disallowed. Because that's but
you're not thinking that in the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. But now everybody should.
Yeah.
Because I saw it. I just went, well, there's nothing in that. That sucks to be the referee. He got pushed over and he fell over, and it was really unfair, and he shouldn't have been there. Not Jerome Hughes shouldn't have pushed him over. Jerome Hughes is trying to make a tackle. Now, I've heard some people say it should have just been a fine. I totally disagree with that. I think it should have been nothing, and the referee should have been told, dude, you've got to get out of the way. If anything, the referee should be the one getting the fine or the whatever.
Yeah, the fine is sort of a bet each way, isn't it? I mean, he this is one of those offences where you're either guilty of it or you're not, and I know that sounds a bit simplistic, but you get what I mean,
Yeah.
You can't go halfway with this. And I agree, there should have been no sanction at all. The referee has a responsibility. It's a big field. It's 100 metres long. When there's an attacking player running at a defender close to the line and you're right in their way, well, I'm sorry, but maybe the defender is going to have to push you out of the way. In a reflex reaction, in that split second, the heat of the moment, the referee could have gone anywhere. As I said, the field is big and long.
The way I figure
the referee was in the way.
If it was a player, if it was an opposing team's player, it would have been a penalty. Because the opposing team's player would have been obstructing Jerome Hughes. That's what I thought. Like, that's what you've got to replace it with. The referee was in the wrong spot. Like, if it is opposing team's player, Jerome Hughes gets nothing. The opposing team gets in trouble because the opposing team's player was in the wrong place. Put a referee in there and suddenly it's Jerome Hughes' problem? No, I'm sorry. It's the same situation, actually. It's now the referee's problem. The referee was in the wrong place. I couldn't believe it when I woke up, like yesterday or whatever it was, and saw this, that he'd been charged. Unbelievable. And if you had to fought it, it was going to be 2 weeks or something. Like, what the what?
If you had to fought it, he risked a 2-game ban. So that's the thing, because no one seems to win at the judiciary anymore. So it's a lot easier to just cop the 1-game ban than risk missing 2 by fighting it and losing. A much safer bet for the Storm to just take the early play, and that's what they've done. But the referee, the responsibility has got to be on the referee to get out of the way in that situation.
Absolutely.
The referee was far too close to the play. And, I wasn't happy about it at all, to be honest.
Meanwhile, over at the Sharks, Scotty from marketing, our former PM, Scott Morrison, has been... So... I've seen conflicting news reports about this. Did the Sharks axe him as the ticket holder, or did he hand back his number 1 ticket?
Well, the feeling is that he jumped before he was pushed. The feeling is that, that they were niggling to, that they wanted to get rid of him as their number 1 ticket holder, and he's, I don't know if you can resign from being a number 1 ticket holder, but he's quit as number 1 ticket holder, if that makes any sense. That's the feeling, that he's made the decision to bail on it before he was removed from it. It's not, it's a number 1 ticket holder role. It's not, it's hardly the biggest deal in the world, but...
It's just kind of a bizarre thing. Who are they going to give it to instead? What was their plan?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Apparently, according to reports, it was announced... It was awkward because it was announced over the loudspeaker at Shark Park on Friday that he wasn't going to be continuing, and then that they made no announcement of a replacement number 1 ticket holder. So you had this awkward situation where he was there in the crowd and this announcement was being made, and there was no announcement of a replacement. So that was weird, but I just think it's sort of symbolic of the nature of politics, isn't it? While you're there and you're the Prime Minister, everyone wants to be your friend and give you a pat on the back. But once you're gone, no one cares about you anymore, and no one cares anymore. And, that's the business of politics.
I believe John Howard is still the number 1 ticket holder for the Dragons and will be until the day he dies. Is he even still alive, actually?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But, I guess John Howard's held in much higher esteem than Scott Morrison.
Does everyone hate Scott Morrison that much that they'll even announce over the loudspeaker that he's no longer the number 1 ticket holder?
Yeah, apparently there were reports last year that the Sharks had asked him to hand back the title, Morrison, over his role in the Robo-Debt scandal. There were those reports as well. His office rubbished the reports at the time, but I just think it's, politics, once you're out of it, I know John Howard might be an exception, but in Scott Morrison's case, it seems like,
everyone really hates him.
People have moved on from him pretty quickly.
Everyone really hates him, so yeah. And finally for NRL, the Roosters have finally lodged a complaint to the NRL over the Spencer Leniu judiciary gaffes, as they should.
Yeah, it wasn't really good enough. I think it was, SC Lachlan Giles. He was the NRL's Judiciary Counsel. made some real gaffes in that judiciary hearing, referred to Spencer Leniu as Spencer Luai in the hearing, and incorrectly stated that he played for Tonga rather than Samoa. The gaffes were promptly corrected by NRL Judiciary Chairman Jeff Bellew SC. The Roosters were concerned about those mistakes made by Giles and made a complaint to the NRL. And so they should. You got to get that. That's basic. Those are basic matters that they need to get right in a judiciary hearing. And fair enough that they made that complaint over.
It shows the incompetence of the person they put in charge. It shows incompetence of the person they put in charge of trying to get Spencer Leniu convicted, right? The guy doesn't even know the person's name, and they still gave him 8 weeks. It was all pre-planned. Let's face it. They looked at the ladder and the draw, and they went, "It's playing the Broncos in 7 weeks. Let's do 8," and that was it. It didn't matter what happened. And the Roosters should push more, actually, for this kind of thing. They should be complaining about players making statements in the media, and they should complain about the kangaroo court that happened to Spencer Leniu. He was guilty. He deserves to be suspended. I don't care if it's 8 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever they give. I just think that everything about it has gone so far outside of how it's supposed to work. The government has a thing called the Administrative Appeals Tribunal for when you're dealing with government, where the appeal is based around you believe that the policies and administration rules weren't followed. Not that you were, if you do something and they say, they fine you and you appeal the fine or whatever. It's just that they didn't follow the correct process. And everything about this Spencer Leniu thing has not followed the correct process. And that's what the Roosters should be concentrating on right now. Not reducing his ban or anything like that, but saying something was wrong here. There was something very wrong here. And you need to repair your systems.
Yeah, the NRL's Judiciary Council have got to get that right. They shouldn't be calling him Spencer Luai or getting the country he played for wrong. These are basic facts, and the NRL need to get that right.
Yeah, exactly. I can get it wrong because I'm not in a court hearing. That's the thing. That's it for Rugby League for the week. We can move on to other sports news. Donald Trump, Latrell Mitchell of tennis is in the news again. Nicky boy Kyrgios has had a whine about people saying he's faking an injury. I don't care if he's faking an injury or not. He should never play again. He should probably never talk to the media again.
Yeah, he shared a video of the scars on both sides of his wrist from the operation to repair a torn ligament. And the quote from him was, "For those who keep saying I'm just faking an injury, just a little look at my scar." He wrote, and then he wrote, "It's larger than your work ethic, but it's progressing." So
he's got the worst work ethic ever.
Yeah,
in the history.
I don't think he's one to be commenting about the work ethic of other people.
Maybe except for Bernard Tomic. Bernard Tomic has less work ethic.
It's just
the Latrell Mitchell of tennis is just getting worse and worse and worse.
Continuing to put his foot in it on a pretty much daily basis.
Yeah, he's the Latrell Mitchell of tennis.
Yeah, he just, the amount of time he's been out with these injuries, I think it's he's only played 6 tournaments since that breakthrough run to the Wimbledon final in 2022. He's only had 1 match since he was first sidelined properly at the very beginning of 2023. So what injuries keep you out for this amount of time? Clearly, he just can't be bothered doing the rehab and doing the work to get back. Most other players would be back playing again by now, but he's too lazy, as is the case in his whole career. He's too lazy to put the work in. He doesn't care enough. He's just resting on his laurels. You really are you can't help but wonder if he'll ever play again. As we said, he can't be bothered doing the work to get back. He doesn't even really want to get back.
Yeah, I don't want him to play again. I don't care anymore.
If he wanted to get back, he'd be back by now.
Yeah, I don't want him to play anymore. I don't care anymore. I wish he'd fade away into obscurity and become Andrew Tate and Jake Paul. Buy a billboard and then brag about how you have a billboard.
That anyone can buy if you got enough money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got an Apple Watch. You'd think a guy who grew up in Wollongong could get an Apple Watch because I bought it. You can get them by going down to the shop and buying it. Meanwhile, in soccer, police have detained 12 people as fans invade a pitch of the Turkish soccer game.
Yes.
Soccer fans are justifying this and saying, once again, police are heavy-handed. That whole thing with the Wanderers, man, that like a couple of weeks ago, and in Queensland, Brisbane, whatever, all the soccer fans are just blaming the police. And I think, really, when you look at something like this, okay, look at the one common element. Okay, there's two common elements: police and soccer fans. But in all other sports, it doesn't happen. The one common element here is soccer. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah. Yeah, but bizarre story, John. Turkish police have detained 12 people after fans of top-tier soccer club Trabzonspor invaded the pitch following a home loss against, forgive me for these pronunciations, I think it's Fenerbahce, the club, touching off violent scuffles between the fans and visiting players. Some Fenerbahce players hit back at fans who kicked or punched them, and video of the clashes went viral. Defender Bright Asayi Samuel landed a right hook punch on the run that knocked one pitch invader to the ground, and forward Mishi Batshuayi struck a fan running fast toward him with a spinning high kick move.
Legends. They should get into the MMA.
The incident came just months after the president of Top Flight, another Turkish club, Ankaragucu, was arrested for punching a referee following a match. Just bizarre.
Yeah, it's not their fault. It's all the heavy-handedness of the police and their treatment by the media and stuff like that. It's nothing to do with soccer fans or soccer, nothing.
That incident prompted the Turkish Football Federation to briefly suspend league games. So it was said that among those detained were a person who threw a projectile at Fenerbahce's coach, a man who was the first to invade the pitch, and a fan who grabbed the corner flag and charged toward the players, and a person who hit Fenerbahce goalkeeper Dominik Livakovic. This is just very unsavoury yet again.
Soccer. It's not the soccer fans' fault. There is one common element: soccer. And finally, with other sports news, if you remember after that this historic run of coming fourth, Gold Coast was talking about giving the Matildas a statue, and they are going to be getting this statue.
Yeah.
So what is it, like 20 people in a statue?
Yeah, so it's they wouldn't go into the specifics on that, but I think it's going to be centred around Courtney Vines. I think it was her slotting the winning penalty in that quarter-final against France. Then they went through to the semi-finals against England, lost that, and then lost the third-place playoff. So they finished fourth. They didn't even get a medal, and now they're getting a statue. This is just PC nonsense gone mad. I'm sorry. To get a statue when you finish fourth, what a load of rubbish. What about all these other athletes who won gold medals at the Olympics who don't get statues, and we've got a team that comes fourth who are getting a statue? I'm sorry, but this is a load of nonsense.
Why doesn't the Rugby League World Cup winning team get a statue every time they win?
They actually won.
Win the World Cup.
The men's cricket World Cup team won the World Cup last year.
Win.
Where's their statue?
They come first.
Yeah.
If you're not, what's the Fast and Furious? If you're not first, you're last. All right. You know, they didn't even win a medal. Like,
if they had have come first, all right, go for it. But they've come fourth, so for them to get a statue, it's PC nonsense.
They've also come fourth before. They came fourth at the Olympics, so they come fourth regularly. Like, why didn't they get a statue when they came fourth at the Olympics? It's just bizarre. It's a really weird thing. There's too much. Anyway, I won't ever go look at the statue. That's it for sports news for the week. On to social media blower-uppers. As I said, it's all to do with Latrell Mitchell. We've picked the 5 best, I use the term loosely, best comments. On the Latrell Mitchell, Anthony Mundine feud, the Roostable said, as a brother, Latrell is best to focus on his footy instead of racial stuff. Latrell could be such a positive role model in uniting our awesome country. And user FZ3EY3UG30, I don't know, said, I agree we know Anthony can't help himself. Focus on Rugby Mitchell brother. And Frank Jones 2886 said, for once, Mundine is spot on. So I think that kind of gives us an indication that nobody supports Latrell Mitchell in these things. Like, it is, from a fan perspective, I don't see much positivity about Latrell Mitchell's behaviour. You know, I was talking about, I check on Reddit and stuff like that. I don't see people arguing in the favour of Latrell Mitchell, but NRL, the Rabbitohs club, former players, and the media all seem to be pro Latrell Mitchell no matter what. He can do no wrong. He's the next coming of the Messiah. Again, they got to start listening to the fans. Fans are sick of Latrell Mitchell's behaviour.
Yeah, the people in positions of power are just too scared to hold him accountable, and it's there for all to see. As you say, the fans are making their feelings heard on social media and on forums and in other places. You know, saying all this stuff that we're saying on here. You know, he continues to transgress and he continues to get away with it. And so they continue to, Volandis and Abdo continue to take no action against him. So, you know, this will just continue. They'll continue to not take action against him, and he'll continue to have these sorts of behavioural problems.
Yeah.
As I said, we're only 2 rounds into the season, and we've had all this happen already. What's it going to look like come the end of the season? I feel like this isn't. Obviously, this is not going to be the last we hear of him. The question is just how many more of these incidents can occur before he's held to account.
Yeah, I'd really like to know. And then, still on Latrell, so episode 56, we discussed the suspension. PJ Pomare 3598 said, so the crusher high tackles and force to the head should be dealt with longer suspensions, question mark. CT is no joke, and yes, in 2024 it isn't acceptable. Sticks and Stones, brother. I think this person is saying, like, that an 8-week suspension for Lenier when compared to foul play is a bit ridiculous. I think that's what he's saying. Yeah.
Right, okay.
But he continued with a second comment in reference to Latrell. Why hasn't he won? He only won with the Roosters because he had massive help. I totally forgot Latrell Mitchell won premierships, by the way. But he was with the Roosters in 18 and 19 when they won. He only won with it. Yeah, he's got help at South and's done nothing. He's more help than Inglis did. He does need someone to hold his hand because he hasn't proven it on his own. 8 weeks is way too long compared to 4 weeks for breaking someone's jaw. Words have power if you let it get to you. We've been called coconuts since the dawn of colonization, but we don't do formal complaints. We handle it there and then. Sticks and Stones, brothers, that's all. So, yeah, that's both from PJ Pomare 3598. I guess clarifying his first comment. Basically, he's saying 8 weeks is harsh for a racist remark when you only give 4 weeks for breaking someone's jaw or doing a...
And you did make the point on the last podcast as well that they gave 4 weeks for a homophobic comment that was made.
Yeah.
So essentially the NRL are saying, well, they gave 8 weeks for a racist comment and 4 weeks for a homophobic comment. So essentially, they're saying that racism is twice as bad as homophobia.
Yep,
that's
exactly
what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it for our social media blog.
Again, sorry, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying
that's what they're saying. Yeah. So tipping comps, you can still sign up and win. Round 1 of the AFL finished, and the winner was Philip Sugars, who tipped 8 from 8. He did get beat by 2 employees of SmartB and Julie Snook. So he came 4th this round, mainly on his margin of 21 points difference. He missed it by 21 points. In Rugby League for round 2, congratulations to Richard Mew, who tipped 7 from 8. He missed the margin by 4 points. He again was beaten by 3 SmartB employees, one of which was me. Yes, sometimes I change my tipping comp teams from the podcast recording because Thursday morning to Thursday night. So I tipped 7 from 8 as well.
Nice one.
But my margin was only 2. So because I tip I think it was Broncos would win by 12 and they won by 10. So congratulations, Richard Mew and Philip Sugars. You'll be getting contacted today to get your $100. Yeah, everyone can sign up to the tipping comps and get your $100 if you tip the best for the round. Sign up for the tip of the day as well. It's a daily horse racing tip from the Backer Winner team, and get notifications for your favourite sports. So you'll see the news as we see it every morning. Follow your favourite teams and stuff and get notifications when they're playing. Subversion competition is 10 days away from being drawn. Get 2 tickets to Subversion. I'll be attending with Craig Gower. And the 2 winners, obviously. And don't forget to listen to the SmartB Racing update. The boys tipped a $12 and a $4 winner this week. So that's some good ones. Yeah. And follow at SmartB app on all socials, and we'll see you all on Thursday.
Thanks, John. We'll see you then, mate.
Have a good few days.